Two singular comic issues. This is the entire storyline of Superman Beyond, a Final Crisis tie-in, which is focused on more than the actual event of Final Crisis itself. The Superman Beyond story also contains every showing of the legendary Cosmic Armor Superman, or CAS for short, in all of DC's long history. These two comic book issues gave DC fans one of the most interesting amped versions of a character we have ever seen in DC, or honestly in most fiction in general. But could Cosmic Armor Superman control, alt, delete anything and everyone else around? Many ask this question, and Cosmic Armor Superman fans claimed that the thought robot known as CAS is undefeatable, even against current-day characters inside DC, as well as the current-day cosmology of DC, including the greater Omniverse, despite the power creep that almost always occurs in comics, and specifically within DC. Surely the power of Cosmic Armor Superman has a limit, right? What's up guys, it's me LumosTheromax, and today we discuss the absurd powers of Cosmic Armor Superman. And honestly, this has been a long time coming for my channel, as I've fought CAS fans for quite some time and need to give my official CAS scaling guide so everyone understands my arguments and I make them a little bit clearer, because I've just done this on live streams and things along those lines whenever I discuss this character. So this of course is a Theromax Corps sponsored video. You too can pay to request videos or help me decide what content is coming up next by becoming a Theromax Corps member on my channel today. And if you can't do that, like and subscribe, because most of you weebs out there aren't even subscribed to me yet. So let's keep this party rolling straight into the unbelievably overpowered nature of the Cosmic Armor Superman. So when it comes to Cosmic Armor Superman, we actually have to start off with how Cosmic Armor Superman was formed in the first place. Unlike the many Supermen of the multiverse, Cosmic Armor Superman isn't just another positive matter character that exists from another world inside the Orrery of Worlds. It's actually quite complicated. You see, way back in the day, the Monitor Mind finally recognized stories and sent the science monitor Dax Novu to analyze and study the stories that existed from our multiverse. Dax was blinded, then corrupted by those stories, and as a result created something known as the Cosmic Armor, a hyper-advanced piece of technology that was so far beyond his fellow monitors they could only guess at the Cosmic Armor's purpose. To give you an idea of how insane the technology that these guys can make and comprehend is, some monitors had tech that could exist in the overvoid, such as the entire world of Nil, and some even managed to move many source walls in between worlds to discourage interdimensional travel. But despite this god-tier technology, some monitors claimed the Cosmic Armor was a weapon to destroy the ultimate enemy, and others claimed it was a last-ditched multiversal defender. Despite what they thought the Cosmic Armor was, the Cosmic Armor sealed and stopped the spread of all stories further into the overvoid, effectively sealing or containing the DC multiverse. The Cosmic Armor then sat inactive on Nil, awaiting activation for whatever higher purpose Dax Novu actually had for it. The Cosmic Armor itself is also known as the Thought Robot, and there's a reason why, as its form is composed of pure thought. The Cosmic Armor is designed to be piloted by the thoughts of a dual symmetry. So what exactly is a dual symmetry, and which dual symmetry pilots the armor? During the events of Superman Beyond, we follow both Superman and Ultraman being recruited by one of the monitors attempting to save the entire multiverse. In their travels, they go to the highest plane inside our localized multiversal structure that they are actively aware of, a realm called Limbo. Keep in mind that due to DC cosmology, this plane transcends the God Sphere and is where memories and matter all effectively die on a narrative level. Both Superman and Ultraman could exist and do things inside Limbo, which was thought to be impossible by the inhabitants of Limbo, which should scale to Cosmic Armor Superman later. It is also here that a coked out knockoff Dr. Manhattan Superman who is with them decides to test his ultimate understanding of the multiverse by fusing the symmetries of Superman. The fused symmetries, Superman, which is the loving act, and Ultraman, which is the hate crime, fundamental opposites, were fused together in this moment. In a new form, Ultraman and Superman awake inside and control of the Thought Robot and have become fully what we know now as the Cosmic Armor Superman. At this point in time, we have entirely left the multiverse altogether and find ourselves on Nil. And Nil, during the events of this story, is actually inside the overvoid, not inside the monitor sphere where it later resides on the map of the multiverse. Nil is where form and meaning are entirely lost to the overvoid. Being the fused consciousness of both these Supermen, it appears that Superman, not Ultraman, becomes the dominant personality inside the Cosmic Armor and controls the machine almost entirely. It is interesting to note that Ultraman's opinions can be heard by Superman at random times while piloting the machine. Logically, this robot has the reaction speeds of at least both of these Supermen combined, but it is clearly seen that he is vastly superior to both of them. But why? The first thing Superman does is begin to recognize his new levels of understanding and awareness in this new, higher, primordial realm. Space, time, scale, everything was more profound and fundamental in this higher plane. Cass then looks at Limbo as nothing more than something to hold in his hands, proving that this form entirely transcends Limbo, holding it in his finger like a balloon he can dance around. The cosmic armor also has levels of a multiversal awareness and continuous alarms of multiversal calamity that seemingly happen around them that Cass can sense. Cass also feels the presence of some being pressing up upon him and reaching towards the panel itself. Depending on how you choose to interpret it, this feat could be comprehending the person reading the comic, or that he is comprehending the overmonitor, quote-unquote, breathing across everything. I would say it's the former, as fourth wall awareness is something that even God Sphere level characters can do, such as Dr. Fate, seen here, casually granting those powers to Wally West. And to be honest, there's nothing you could say that would convince me that he's touching me, the reader, from inside the comic book. That's kind of a silly argument. However, using his vast cosmic awareness, Cosmic Armor Superman comprehends the entire multiverse in a very fast-paced setting, and tanks the ruptured cosmic conceptual space leaking outside of the Orrery of Worlds, since its container happened to be broken open at the time. Cosmic Armor Superman then confronts his ultimate enemy that he was designed for, Mandrakk, the Dark Monitor. Mandrakk, for context, is Dax Novu, the first monitor the Monitor Mind had originally sent to analyze the stories in our multiverse. Mandrakk had been building a bridge from the void to our multiverse, and is capable of draining our entire multiverse of its blood or stories, kind of like a cosmic vampire. And if you want a video on Mandrakk, be sure to donate and sponsor that bad boy. I'd love to make it happen. Let me know down in those comments. However, Cass then starts taking energy blasts from Mandrakk in the final crisis of the multiverse, and then we are returned to the beginning of where the story had originally began. After he is blasted by Mandrakk even more, Cass suffers severe damage and begins leaking what looks like blood, although I'd assume bleed since monitors traditionally power their technology with bleed, from both his eyes and his ears. The same energy blasts later on fry a named monitor nearby. Superman finds himself in a higher living story, something described as a self-assembling hyper-story of the monitors, but he keeps fighting to get the one thing that can save his wife's life: bleed. Mandrakk and Cass blow up most of Nil, the city of the monitors, as the battle between them rages on. This brings us arguably to the strongest hacks Cosmic Armor Superman has, his adaptive power set. You see, the Thought Robot has adaptive qualities that adapt to the power level of its foe and gets stronger, much like his enemy Mandrakk. They both try and out-amp one another a variety of times before they step towards the edge of Nil, the entire city of the monitors. The battle seemingly even, Superman then stabs Mandrakk with a random pole found from nearby and uses his super heat vision to tear straight through Mandrakk's chest, throwing him off Nil and casting him out into the overvoid. Cosmic Armor Superman then believes the overvoid swallows Mandrakk whole, and Cass loses him inside the overvoid, believing he was deleted by falling into it. But with all of that being said, is Cosmic Armor Superman even defeatable?
But Lumos, did you see him fight Mandrakk?
He's clearly the
He was
strongest
all the stories
member.
that
What are
he
you
was
talking
going
about?
to. There's no way anybody could beat him.
Fought
Mandrakk.
Of course there are limitations to Cosmic Armor Superman, and CassFan69 is clearly wrong here with his friends, as in this battle with Mandrakk, Cass was blinded and wounded beyond repair before he dispersed his form back down into Superman and Ultraman. This demonstrates a clear limitation to his regeneration or his energy reserves, as either he couldn't regenerate due to the damage being too severe, or Cass lacked the energy required to regenerate after battle. If Cass could just repair itself, he would have, but Cass also demonstrated no knowledge or ability to repair the Thought Robot, as it was just the combined idea of Superman and Ultraman's knowledge. Obviously, the hyper story that is the Thought Robot contains any and all stories from our multiverse, as originally the armor sealed the flaw that is our multiverse. This is huge, but It factors up to the point to this specific story, Final Crisis, Superman Beyond, inside the entire history of DC. This essentially means that you can't retroactively count stories past this point as part of the stories that were utilized within this story and scale Cosmic Armor Superman up to modern day stories. This scales up to the limbo, which is where all stories go to die. It's also important to note that stories got much stronger after this event, and since entire layers of cosmology have been added to our cosmology, to DC cosmology since then, obviously things have gotten a lot larger and more dangerous. It's also important to note that the stories that are contained by Cass are just the stories of our singular multiverse, not the stories of other multiverses out in the overvoid. Clearly, Cass doesn't represent the entire overvoid as many believe, as he couldn't even tell what happened to Mandrakk after he fell off of Nil into the overvoid. Now, this could be read two specific ways, and the first is that he cannot see through the entire overvoid. This is definitively the case, even as a lowball, as unless he's just lying to himself by talking to himself in his head. But how exactly long was Mandrakk lost in the overvoid before he fell into the dark multiverse? And before you ask, yes, this is the same Mandrakk from the one in Final Crisis, as he even explains those events happening inside this panel. The time frame is unclear, and if Mandrakk immediately is hidden inside the dark multiverse, it implies that Cass cannot see through different segments of just our specific multiverse, and our multiverse specifically is a classic tripartite form or structure, meaning it has three specific realms out of different forms of matter. TLDR, essentially what I'm saying is maybe Cosmic Armor Superman can only see through the positive matter multiverse, but not the dark matter multiverse that exists down below. This would also make sense, as the original Monitor's purpose was to guide over only the positive matter of the multiverse and the stories that come from them. So it's logical that his defenses, children, and albeit their technology would serve similar functions in similar fields. Either of these takes I can see as viable, and honestly the answer could be both, but the safest bet is that he simply cannot have the faculties to see into the overvoid or comprehend it in any cosmic way. The entire structure seems to be beyond him in its current state. Something important to also note is the fact that he did go blind at the end of the comic, but we don't exactly know when. Maybe he went blind afterwards, and maybe that affected his cosmic awareness, but I feel like that would be downplaying the awesome power of Cosmic Armor Superman personally. I'll save more of the fan-based comments for another video to easily debunk those. 50 likes or more and I'll drop that Cass argument rebuttal video in the next few days, so like and subscribe for more. But that's the wild part about every canonical showing of Cosmic Armor Superman. It's all 2 chapters long, and he had one big fight with the Salt Lord known as Mandrakk, the Dark Monitor. There are several interviews with the creator of the comic that also get taken way out of context, in my opinion, but they aren't too relevant when it comes to the direct scaling of Cass. So, if that's all true, then where does Cass scale? To keep things as straightforward as possible, because this character is incredibly convoluted and insane, Cass scales beyond all the stories inside the DC multiverse at the time of Final Crisis. This implies to me that the Cosmic Armor itself was a form from beyond our multiverse, since Nil was in the overvoid at the time of the story, and that is where Cass was stored. Cass demonstrated power beyond all of the other monitors and durability that came from the original monitor Mar-Novu. How exactly far beyond each of these individual monitors is questionable, considering the limitations of the characters involved, as many of the monitors refuse to actually utilize their own powers at all. But since they don't actively use them, it should be clear that he is above all of the 52 monitors in terms of anything they presented. Now that being said, who exactly is beyond Cosmic Armor Superman then? I would consider Cass above most of the characters inside the multiverse, and as a result of his travels and actions during this era, and due to his W against Mandrakk in general. However, there is no indication at all that Cass could keep up with the top tiers of the entire DC Greater Omniverse, including threats from the overvoid such as the Hands of the Source, like Perpetua, the Judges of the Source, the Archangels, or the Chronicler. We haven't even mentioned those even beyond the confines of the overvoid, such as Prayala or Empty Hand. It's also important to note that Golden Wonder Woman's rival was considered a threat to all of the Hands of the Source itself, so this should make her superior to them since she defeated him. Her rival, the Darkest Knight, was also the newest avatar of the Great Darkness, and logically the Great Darkness is always seeking greater avatars as time goes on, unless you think he's stupid and can destroy existence with less powerful people than he mind hacks the prior time. And we haven't even gotten to the real big boy characters, such as the Source, or the Presence, or the Great Darkness. All these beings demonstrate blatant destruction of multiversal structures or even beyond, and in some cases even omniversal structures. Take for example the events that occurred during the Smile event. And clearly during the events of Incarnate, they are referencing the fact the Great Darkness could destroy the entire greater omniverse. This is also not to mention they can travel and perceive the overvoid while wielding immensely powerful foundational energies that can create entire creations as well as nuke them. I would have to see more from Cass to place him up with these characters, as we just don't get enough time with him, and the opponents that he does fight seemingly have questionable scaling whenever it comes to it. Clearly they can threaten the multiverse. To what degree and how quickly, I think, is the question. Also, pretty much everyone I recently mentioned just has higher levels of existence than Cass demonstrated throughout the totality of his story. Even Golden Wonder Woman, somebody who could process the overvoid beyond our multiverse, still required the judge that arrived at the end of Death Metal to give her a form for her to even comprehend. This would still be something outside of Cass's territory. After all, Cass is technology that was developed by an aspect of the original monitor, Mar-Novu. Mar-Novu doesn't really have the ability to overcome higher-end beings such as Perpetua or the Darkest Night, whose power could destroy all creation pretty casually, threaten the hands as well as their creations, and harm the Source Wall, or pass their hacks through the Source Wall at the pinnacle of their power, or even while they were weakened. Could Cass possibly be stronger than Mar-Novu? Somebody who could tie the anti-monitor for 1,000,000 years in a beam struggle between two separate sets of reality? Maybe, but we just don't see enough information for me to convince myself that Cass is actually on that level. Mandrakk also still used armies and technology to destroy creation rather than just nuke it himself, which was always kind of odd in my opinion. It is important to note that Mandrakk was seen as a threat to the entire multiverse, as he was going to drain the multiverse dry of its stories, hence the whole vampire getup. The real question, as I stated earlier, is could Mandrakk consume all of the multiverse instantaneously, or does he drink it over time like a glass of wine, or like a whole bottle that would take a ton of time to drink? We don't really get an answer, but we do know if Mandrakk had succeeded in defeating Cass, the multiverse definitively would have met its end. This would also serve the Great Darkness, someone who corrupted Mandrakk in the first place, and those who took up the Mandrakk mantle by making them avatars of his. Mandrakk, like the other avatars of the Great Darkness, is unaware of their connection to the Great Darkness and does its bidding unknowingly. This reflects the albeit insanely high limitations of Cass, as he was mortally wounded by just an avatar of the Great Darkness, and we all know that the true Great Darkness is far superior to any of his avatars. I would scale this out personally to at least extraversal as a mid-ball and high extraversal as a high ball, due to the way DC cosmology works in general. And don't forget, I have a cosmology video to help you explain my takes on the entire cosmology of DC. This would make Cosmic Armor Superman one of the strongest characters that ever existed from our home DC multiverse, especially for the 2000s era, where Cosmic Armor Superman first and only appeared. So here's my final question to you as a viewer. Did you like Cosmic Armor Superman as a concept? Should we see this concept or character reappear in DC Comics' future? Be sure to tell me down low, as I always look forward to seeing your guys' answers. I hate to be that guy, but I don't imagine we'll ever see Cass again, but that doesn't mean we can't hope to see him again. After all, that is what Superman represents. If we get more content on Cass down the way, I do look forward to updating my current interpretation of the Cosmic Armor Superman scaling, as power creep always occurs, and when characters occur down the way, they always add more to it. Did I miss something important? Be sure to let me know down low, and don't forget to like and subscribe. As well as, don't forget, if I hit 50 likes on this video, I'll make a Cass rebuttal debunk discussing major pitfalls and major scaling metas people use with Cass, and explain why they are bad in my opinion. And if this video gets a debunk, I'll gladly cover that too, especially if it's from someone who doesn't want to talk about these issues with me, but still covers my content religiously on the topic, as I think it's only fair. It's always a blast making these videos for all of you guys, and be sure to become a Theromax Corps member on my channel down low. Hit the link. It comes with all sorts of perks and badges, emojis, and more, so jump to the core today. And I'm sorry for triggering all of you Cosmic Armor Superman fans, but somebody needed to check this crowd, as y'all are wiling out there, okay? Thanks a ton for hanging out, and I guess I'll see you next time, Lanterns. Later.